Hello, everybody. It's Naughty Nana Does. How are you on this Good Friday? Good, I hope. I hope everybody's doing well. Still got my apron on because I'm making a big pot of stew over there. I don't know if that's Easter or not, but that's what we're having for dinner tonight, just saying. So, anyway, I want to tell you a story today. This is my interpretation of the little Jewish boy named Jesus. That's right. Okay, shall we begin? It's long, so I hope you hang in with me, because it was a long, long, long time ago in a little town where there was a boy and a girl, and their names were Joseph and Miriam, better known today as Joseph and Mary. So Joseph and Mary, they met and they were hanging out and stuff, and I guess Joseph was, we'll call him Joseph, was getting a little smitten with Mary. So he loved her, and he liked her so much that he put a ring on it. That's right. And then the weirdest thing of all happened. She ended up getting pregnant. That's right. And apparently it wasn't Joseph's. So they decided to call it the Immaculate Conception, because Mary was sinless. So around 6 BC or 4 BC, they decided to do some traveling. So they ended up traveling to Bethlehem, where Mary goes into labor. Probably from riding that ass for so many miles, just saying. Now they find a stable, and word gets out that a magic boy is born, and they're going to call him the Messiah. This is going to stir up stuff from all over the place. So anyway, he was born shortly before King Herod the Great died. He wasn't a good man. So when the baby was born, they named him Joshua. That's right, his name was Joshua, and his Jewish parents loved him very much. So his parents were from Nazareth in the city of Galilee, where by law they had to travel back to their ancestral town so they could be taxed. Republicans had a swamp even back then, before there even was the swamp. So go figure, Jesus growing up, his whole surroundings was complicated by religion and politics. So Mary, Jesus, and Joseph packed up and moved to Jerusalem. Then King Herod got all Trumpy-like, and they were on the road again. So this time they ended up in Egypt until Herod died. That's from Matthew 2:12, 2:13 to 2:18. That's right. So Mary and Joseph's baby making began in earnest then. They were like bunnies, much like Easter traditions, right? In Matthew 1:24-25, they ended up having 4 more boys and at least 2 girls. And Matthew 13:55, verse 56. So Joshua, Jesus, being the firstborn to whoever, and the oldest, became a carpenter just like his dad. That's right. And like a good Jewish boy would, he worked in the family business. Now, they went on pilgrimages every year to Jerusalem for a vacation. And this one time, when Josh was 12 and the family was headed back home, they were like an hour or two, almost, I think it was almost a day away. Didn't they forget that Kevin was home alone, was left alone? I mean, Jesus was left behind. They couldn't figure out how they forgot him. But anyway, how could they not realize, right? So now they had to travel on their ass all the way back to Jerusalem to find him. So when they got there, they toured some of their usual haunts, the places where he would like to hang out and stuff. And sure enough, they found him at the temple in Jerusalem, talking to what I guess we could call today is the rabbis and stuff, right? And all the religious people. That's from Luke 2, 46. So naturally, they were so glad that he was okay. And I bet you he got grounded or got his arse smacked a time or two, I'm just saying. But I can just imagine his mom like, "What the hell, Josh? You had us scared to death." And I guess their mind was put at ease when they seen that he was taken care of and stuff. And people kind of liked the kid and listened to what he had to say. And he asked a lot of questions, probably annoying as shit, I'm just saying. But anyway, he asked a lot of questions. He was very mature, they said, for a 12-year-old. So they allowed him to hang out in Jerusalem for a few more days before they were up and on their way back home. So he ended up, this goes on for about 18 years, where he becomes a professional carpenter and builder and stuff, and goes out and does his stuff. So a good Jewish boy usually lives at home until they're married and runs the family business, right? But poor Jesus couldn't find a girl. He couldn't. And apparently he stayed single and celibate until he took his show on the road. That's right, Jesus was about 30, according to Luke 3:23, when he was walking down the road with his gorgeous head of brunette-colored curly hair there, and his big brown eyes, and his strong nose and strong jaw. And he had a really good tan that apparently he'd had since he was born. So yeah. Now he gets to the River Jordan on his road trip there, and doesn't he meet John, who's laying in the river there having a wee soak? Well, Jesus decides to get in, and they're fooling around, and I guess John dunked him. And they were laughing and stuff, and John decided that would be baptism. That's right. So John baptized Jesus by dunking him into the water. That's right. That's how that started, hence the name, John the Baptist. So back to Galilee he goes, and he starts preaching. He gains quite a fan following, I'm telling you. And he calls the first dozen people to join his band the disciples. So it was Jesus and the disciples on a big road tour. That's right. Now, they were like his road crew, and they traveled everywhere with him. John the Baptist ends up getting his head lobbed off. Ooh. So they didn't want to be connected to any of that, so him and the band just split back to Jerusalem. Now, they traveled to the Sea of Galilee on the way home, along the River Jordan, to where he swam and got dunked. He started thinking about his old buddy John in the good old days, just hanging out. But then they moved on. So now that brings us to to Easter, or the Passion Week, as they called it, where the band of brown boys have been traveling the countryside, doing magic tricks, turning water into wine, great party tricks, just saying. For family, weddings, they multiplied bread and fishes. That was super popular, right? And making the lame walk and the blind see. Now we use doctors, I'm just saying. Now the word was out how successful this tour was, and the last show was going to be held in Jerusalem. What a triumphant return, where his journey began at the age of 12. Now, just before getting to Jerusalem, according to John 12, 9-11, he raised Lazarus from the dead. That's right. So, of course, word got out about that, and his tour, everybody was just blowing up trying to get to that. So, finally goes to Jerusalem. So Jesus and the band, they descend down from the Mount of Olives there. Now, I imagine it kind of like Olive Garden, where you could get all you can eat and a matzo ball soup, just saying. Because I like matzo ball soup, it's really good. But anyway, Jesus visits his favorite temple. Back when he was 12, and so his parents found him after he got left behind. So anyway, he gets there, and all of a sudden, he loses his shit. He starts tipping tables over, and he's ranting and raving and screaming at people, at the money changers. Now, in my estimation, I believe the money changers would be people like bookies and snake oil salesmen, and people taking donations so they can finance their big fancy new chariots and Mara mansions, or whatever they called them back in the day. Now, Jesus and the Jewish elders have an argument, and Jesus calls the the elders, hypocrites. So Judas Iscariot, one of his roadies there, senses there's some trouble coming. So he decides he'd get ahead of it. He makes a bargain with them, with the elders and all those people. If they pay him, he'll just kind of tell them what they want to hear, right? So he makes a bargain with him to give him money. And then Judas throws all his friends under the chariot wheels to save his own ass. That's right. Now, the judgment is the last straw, right? So Jesus decides to have a dinner meeting designed to let all his folks in his group there know, all these disciples, know that he knows that they're a bunch of lying, hypocrite turncoats, and he announces it right to their face. Now, Trump Judas doesn't give a shit because he already got his money, and Peter Pence, well, he had no guts to stand up to anybody and sat there just watching and admiring passively as Jesus and Mary Magdalene hung out and made out. Some even say she ended up with a bun in the oven after this was all said and done, from getting all hammered on the wine and whatnot and having drunk sex with the gospel singer Jesus himself. So that's how that went. So now this farewell to the band, after party was on a Thursday, and after supper they went for a walk in a nearby garden in Gethsemane, where, because of Trump Judas speaking his name and telling everybody that would listen, kind of like the telegraph type thing. You whispered in your ear and pass it around. Yeah, that was kind of like their media back then. And Jesus was arrested. And King Caiaphas, who was a Jew himself, was a chicken, much like Peter Pence, and saw Jesus as a threat to the religious order. So maybe Jesus might have been a Democrat. Caiaphas believed that if he wasn't restrained or killed, the Romans might end their relevant tolerance of the Jewish institutions, and Pontius Pilate might turn on the Jews. Bad for Caiaphas. So anyway, now Jesus is humiliated because he's dragged before Pontius Pilate, who's the big governor, right? So he's dragged in front of Pontius Pilate, who gives the orders after a real scam trial. That might have been Putin Pilate, who knows? In order to crucify Jesus. Now, according to the Gospel of Matthew, Pilate washed his hands before all Jesus' fans and said, "I am innocent of the blood of this person." Apparently, he didn't want to kill Jesus, but because that's what the base wanted, he went along with it. Jesus Christ. Were all these people Republicans? And Jesus really was a Democrat? Now, the story ends, and it's sad, right? They crown Jesus with a big thorny crown they put on his head, and they make a huge cross and make him lug it all through these narrow cobblestone streets. And the rest is just too sad, because on this Good Friday, Jesus was killed. That's right, by the Jews. Terrible thing. Some people say it was the Romans, but I don't believe that's true. So anyway, the modern interpretation is Jesus is killed, where Joe Biden's numbers go down, but on Easter, on the third day, he rose again. And so did Biden's numbers. Just saying. So Jesus rose in a blaze of glory. He floated up to his other dad. Does that mean that Jesus had two daddies? That's pretty cool, isn't it? He rose up, and as he was going up there, he looked down with one hand over his heart and one hand, I don't know if this was like, now listen here. And he told all the people not to be sad about my dying, because it was foreseen in the tarot cards or whatever. So don't be sad about my passing. And I want everybody to treat everybody else like they want to be treated. And let's call it the golden rule, shall we? Happy Easter, everybody. That's the end. I know it's long, but I think it was worth it. Naughty Nana loves you. Be good, be safe, be good to you. Mwah. Happy Easter. I love y'all.